Aloha boys and girls, ladies and gentlethems. Welcome to my first art tutorial. Today I'm going to be sharing some techniques on how to blend with acrylic paints. I often get questions on how I keep colors blended so smoothly in my backgrounds, and so I thought this would be a great topic to start my first video out with. I've never made these videos before, so we're going to roll through the punches of what it takes to make an art tutorial video. Thank you for your support and thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this video. And yeah, I'm gonna tell you what supplies you need, so go ahead and collect those and we'll get started. You can really use whatever colors of acrylic paint that you want. We're really just going to be working on our blending technique with no specific direction of where the background is going, so you really can play with any colors. I'm going to choose some red, some yellow, maybe some purple. There we go, a little bit of yellow. Running out of paint here. Got a little yellow, a little red. Let's do maybe a little bright pink. I love neon colors. When you're pouring acrylic paint, you do not need to squeeze out the whole tube. Paint is expensive, and you really can just do little dabs at a time and slowly add more to your palette if you ever need. I'm also going to add a little bit of white. Let's see, I think we could maybe do one more color in here. We'll add a little bit of some phthalo blue. Need to buy new paints. All right. There we go. Again, you can pick whatever colors you want for this tutorial today. If you want to just play around with purples, if you want to play around with greens, whatever you are feeling. I actually think I will add a little bit of purple now that I say that. This is a pretty kind of like lavender purple. There we go. So just little dabs will do ya. A little dab will do ya. You will also need a surface to paint on today. I am using canvas. This is a canvas pad from Frederick's. It's a 12 by 16 pad, but I've divided it into two sections so I can do two quick tutorials for you. I would recommend to use canvas, but you can also use wood or cardboard, especially if you're just experimenting and testing this out. I'd highly recommend cardboard. It's cheap, typically free, and you can find it just about anywhere. You will also need a brush. I highly recommend for this tutorial, if you want to follow what I'm doing, to get yourself a flat square brush. This is a 1-inch brush. They make all sorts of sizes. This is my favorite. If you're working on a much smaller canvas, you can play with a 1/2-inch brush. If you're working on a much bigger canvas, you can work with 2 or 3-inch brushes, whatever you feel like. But today, 1-inch brush will do. Make sure it's clean and ready to go. You're also going to need a towel or some kind of rag to wipe your paintbrushes on. I love to use just the same towel all the time. It's collecting paint from all the years I've been using it. Got our palette and our paint, our canvas, so we're gonna be ready to go. So let's get started. Grab your 1-inch brush, make sure to rinse it off in the water, make sure it's all clean from any prior use. Go ahead and shake some of the water off, dry it off on your towel, and let's pick up our paint palette. So, here are the colors we picked out, and I'm going to work on this top one first. On this top one, we're going to keep it simple with just 2 colors. We're going to play around with the purple and the blue. I don't use palette knives. I also don't mix colors too often. I like to just scoop and mix on the canvas. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with a big scoop of purple. Pretty big. It's like you're scooping your favorite cream cheese dip on your pretzels. That's what I just had for a snack. We're going to take our purple and we're going to set it down and we're going to go back and forth from side to side. Now notice my brush is on the wide side, so you can see 1 inch of the width, versus on the skinny side when it just makes a small line. So wide, skinny. So I'm going to use this wide 1-inch diameter and I'm going to go back and forth. And I'm going to make sure that there's no white spots peeking through. And by that I mean, I'll make some intentionally here, I mean you see these like little tiny white speckles kind of peeking through. That's how you know you're not either pressing down hard enough with the brush or you need more paint. If you start seeing white speckles, go ahead and scoop up more purple paint or whatever color you're using, and continue to go back and forth. I'm really just taking my brush in the same direction, trying to keep it even, keep it level. For my backgrounds, I typically keep my brush strokes going in one direction, whether it's horizontal, left to right, or vertical up and down. So I'm just going to cover this all the way across until I have a nice big section. You want to make sure to go edge to edge so there's no white edges, and I'm going to go about halfway up here. Now, I'm going to leave my brush dirty, and I'm going to pick up a nice big scoop of blue. I'm going to start with the scoop of blue, and I'm going to put it up at the top, and I'm going to start doing the same thing. I'm just going to go back and forth with smooth, even brush strokes. There's a little bit of pressure there, so if you watch my brush, there's pressure to where the side of the brush is being utilized and rubbing against the canvas versus just the very tips of my bristles. So you want that whole side down. And you're going to go back and forth. When you're painting back and forth, see, I need a little bit more blue here. Squeeze out a little bit more. Maybe. There we go. When you are painting back and forth, I like to call these brush strokes fishtail strokes because my tail of my brush goes down one way and then it flips to the other side. And it's this kind of like sweeping motion back and forth, like a little fishtail just swimming. Boop, boop, boop. So again, I'm gonna go back and forth, fill up all of this space. I'm gonna let this blue start to come down towards the purple as soon as this whole top area is covered. It's getting closer, it's getting closer, it's getting closer. Now I'm gonna let my brush start to run into the purple. If you stop your paint, or if you stop your brushes right where it meets the purple, you get this kind of heavy line. Now you can see where it's divided. Now we're working on blending them, so we want this line to disappear. To do that, I'm going to continue my fishtail brush strokes back and forth, but I'm going to dip down into the purple and then I'm going to go back up into the blue. And I'm going to repeat this several times up and down until that line starts to disappear. And the amount of this blending is up to you. If you want the line to be completely disappeared and have an even fade, then you'll work this for a little bit longer. If you want a very noticeable change, you don't have to blend back and forth as often. But for this, I really like just a smooth, slow gradient change. Just back and forth, and I'm really just going back into the blue, back into the purple. All right. Here we go. Hopefully you can see that in the camera all right. It's pretty wet, so it looks a little glossy in my light. Now we're going to work on this one down here. For this one, we want to clean our brush off super well. When you are cleaning your brush, don't just swirl it around in the top of the water. I want you to paint the bottom of the cup, like you're painting beautiful swirls on the bottom of the cup. So pretty! You can jump it up and down a little bit. Don't like jam your bristles into the bottom of the cup to hurt them necessarily, but make sure you just get all of those dark colors out. All right, tap off some of that water. You want to dry it completely so there's no blue or purple dripping off anymore. Now we're gonna hop down here. We're gonna do the same type of thing, but we're gonna use this time some yellow, some red, some pink, and some white. I've got neon pink. I think this is maybe a cadmium red. Oh no, primary red, so it's a little lighter than normal reds. All right, we're gonna start down here. We're gonna make a little bit of like a sunset scene in this one. So first I'm gonna take a nice big, let's do a double scoop. Okay, we're gonna do a scoop of white. I got a little bit of white on, and then a scoop of yellow. Some people like to mix this on their palette first. If you're trying to find out what it is that I do, do not mix on your palette first. We're gonna mix right on the canvas. So I've got yellow and white both on here. I'm gonna start near the bottom. I'm gonna go back and forth, just like we did in the top one. Now these colors are gonna naturally start to blend themselves on the canvas, and you'll see where they divide. If you want them to be smooth, then you just go back and forth and back and forth. I'm starting to already see some white dots through my paint, and so that means I need more paint again. So a little scoop of white and a little scoop of yellow. I got both of them on here. I'm gonna go ahead and fill all this up down here. Fill, 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 fill. I really like when you can see different shades of colors in sky scenes. So you see a little bit of darker yellow here, some white tinted yellow, kind of like a medium in between the two. So if you don't mind having some variation in your color, I would highly recommend to play around with the amount of yellow versus the amount of white and continue to go back and forth. So this time we're going to break up this middle line. Instead of it just being a middle line across like the purple and blue was, I'm going to let this come up in one random area. Maybe I'm like 2/3 over on the canvas. So there we go. I'm going to leave the brush dirty again. Now I'm going to pick up, let's pick up some red. A little bit of red and a little bit of pink. Got red and pink together. Again, you can use whatever colors are on your palette. Depending on what colors you choose, they might mix to make a totally different color than unexpected. So I'll make a video about the color wheel at some point so we know what colors to mix and not mix for what we're trying to do. For example, if you were to pick up purple and green on your brush and start to do this, you're probably going to get some shades of brown showing up. If you pick up some yellow and blue, you'll make green. My goal is to make a nice sunset with some oranges. So, still going back and forth. Scoop of pink, scoop of red. Let's get real crazy and do a scoop of yellow too. So I've got all of that goodness on my paintbrush. I'm gonna start filling in these empty spots. Same thing, going back and forth into my old spots, covering the blank spots. And I'm just gonna let this touch into that old red and into that old yellow. Now, instead of going all the way across with my brush strokes, instead of crossing the whole canvas, I'm just gonna go back and forth in little spots like this. So just a few inches. I'm gonna bring it into this area that I let the yellow come up on. Okay, now I wanna show you how to blend into a spot without making like a harsh brush stroke. So I'm gonna pull this down just for an example. If you pull, let me get some more paint on here. If you pull your paintbrush and just stop, there's gonna be a hard line. Pull, stop, and there's like a hard line. That's not blended, that's clearly a hard line right there. So to make that hard line not happen, you're gonna practice with your brush stroke to lift up at the end of every stroke. Kind of like a pendulum, it hits the canvas and up, makes this nice little U action. And so when the bristles lift up ever so slightly, it just allows a little less color to hit the canvas instead of just stopping and lifting when you get a hard line. So I'm gonna pull this across and flick, flick, and flick. It's not so much a flick, I guess, it's more like a gentle lift. And same when you set it back down. If you ever see, like if I set my brush down in the middle of wet paint, you're gonna kind of see where you had set it down. So you can go back the opposite way and do that little lift and it will disappear. We'll go in from this side too, back and forth, doing very quick brush strokes. If you're just starting out painting and getting familiar with your brush, you might not move your hand as quickly due to maybe a little bit of fear that's inside, but trust your instincts, and I promise there's no wrong way to do this. But I encourage you to trust your intuition to let your hand move quickly back and forth. So like here, I sat my brush down in the middle of the canvas. You can see a white speck from where my brush stroke had sat down. So I'm gonna set my brush down, lightly pull it across, and it disappears. I've got kind of a hard line right here still that I want to blend in, so I'm gonna start from the opposite side. And I'm gonna go back and forth. And I haven't dipped into any new paint in a while because my canvas is still really wet, which means I can utilize the wet paint that is on my canvas instead of pouring more. And I'm really just continuing to go back and forth. You can do this as long as you would like until you get the desired effect. I feel like mine is almost to a complete base that I would like it to be. I think I just want like a little, maybe one more scoop of yellow. And my brush is still dirty. I haven't cleaned my brush this whole time. I really like to leave old colors on there because I feel like everything happens for a reason, including the colors that you set down. So I have some old shades in here from the previous spots on this canvas, and I'm just gonna plop them down with the yellow I scooped up and see what happens. That makes a beautiful golden color. It pops them over here, really just going back and forth, still horizontal. I'm gonna finish this up by just dragging it all the way across. Looks like we got a couple white dots down here I missed, so back and forth a few more times. And there we go, you guys. So now that the canvases are all painted, I'm gonna peel off the tape. It's always a satisfying feeling to see the white frames. Ooh la la! Thank you so much for watching my video. Again, this is my first art tutorial. I plan to do many more on various blending techniques, various painting and drawing techniques that I use, as well as step-by-step painting tutorials to paint various imagery, hopefully for all levels, beginners, medium, and advanced. If you have any requests of videos to watch, please post those comments in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions on how I can better this video series that I'm starting, then comment those in the video below as well. I'm starting a Patreon to support these art tutorials so I can spread the message of creativity and the ability that everybody has to make art. So I'll post my link to my Patreon in the comments as well, or I guess in the description of this video. Again, this is my first tutorial, so I don't entirely know what it is you're supposed to be doing with art tutorials and where Patreon things go. I'm really figuring it out step by step. Making the video was my first step. So hopefully I kept this under 15 minutes. That was my goal. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and love. Until next time.